let's be for real. If the Democrats wanted to turn around and reschedule cannabis, they would have did it under Obama, but they didn't. They actually went ahead and addressed the LGBTQ situation, which I didn't know it was a situation until Obama, but obviously he said it was. If you get the concept, yes, I do lean a little bit more conservative. But this is an interesting issue to me because I'm not the type of conservative that believes that cannabis is just bad all around. No, I don't. I think it's just like anything else that you take. I mean, you turn around and you drink alcohol. I'll be for real. Alcohol has more of an effect than cannabis would ever have on you. And if you disagree with me, just leave a comment. Tell me what your thoughts are about cannabis. I'm curious to know what you think about the tree, you know? But I do believe that that alcohol is more that has more ramifications to you than cannabis does. And they never put alcohol as Schedule 1. Now, I had to start digging in there, and I'm going to do a little bit more on it because it's always been political. It's always been a political conversation. It's been Democrats, Republicans, conservatives against Democrats. The conservatives used it at one time to disband what they believed were the anti-wars back in the 70s, who didn't want them going into Vietnam. So Nixon went ahead and passed that law, and prior to that, they actually started attacking cannabis because migrants were using it, Mexican migrants and blacks in the South and all over were using it. Artists and entertainers and then it slowly started to come into mainstream. They said, "Oh no, we're not gonna have that happen." So they went ahead and then banned it. And but it's crazy. And then they turned around and made made alcohol legal and put all these steps in place with it. I could just imagine some type of church mother was sitting back saying, "I don't want Billy smoking that cannabis." That marijuana is making him go out of control. Now, granted, I'm not a believer in you just smoking stuff and just because these things have effect. I'm not going to stand here and say, well, cannabis is more natural from the ground, but I'm not going to stand here and say that you don't have a psychedelic effect. Yeah, you do. And the fact is that people should know the effects and they should take control of it and regulate it instead of putting every single man and woman caught with that Schedule 1 right now until he decides in jail. And I'm not talking about the traffickers. I'm talking about just the average users. It wasn't until recently right now, over the last 10 years or so, 12 years ago, where certain states started to allow that to be recreational, where we're not putting you in jail and for smoking cannabis. And if you're in New York or certain places, yeah, you can smoke it, but guess what? We don't want you trafficking it, which I understand because you don't know what's in it. People try stuff and try different drugs, especially when it's off market, which leads me to say, why not regulate it? Why not turn around so you can control and you know what's in it and what goes out to the people in the public is in it, whether you're talking about hemp or whether you're talking about full cannabis, doesn't matter. But it should be regulated, just like you regulate alcohol, just like you regulate aspirin, you know? But no. Our legislators, they've been holding this thing out for a while. For what reason? I say we got to look at it like this. It was done by a Republican rush. Like the Republicans, conservatives, my party, the Republican Party, they turned around and they banned cannabis because it went against their war efforts from the hippies that were smoking it and all of that. And wouldn't it be amazing if a Republican president turned around and legalized it or made it more accessible? Because the reality of it is people do need this type of drug. It is a drug. We don't say it is recreational. Alcohol's a drug too, surprise. Oh, you guys that love it. But let's get down to the root of it. Let's be honest. Like even it ain't killing nobody. Crack cocaine is making people walk down the street butt naked, you know? High off of crack. Man, people get together and start a band. I heard this joke. Yeah. When you get alcohol in the mix, they start fighting. People fight. You put 4 guys with alcohol, they fight. You put 4 guys with cannabis, they start a band.
Congratulations. Well done.
But hey, the need to restrict it and control it is a big thing. And I am for restrictions and I'm for controls. I've heard people say it's the alcohol companies, the alcohol manufacturers that are anti it. It is some, because it does get into their profits, especially if they don't have the money to go ahead and compete in that space. There's so many THC and different cannabis drinks that are out there that threaten their profits. You know, people would rather drink a THC drink, get a little buzz, than turn around and not have to deal with all the other craziness that comes with alcohol, you know? All the other craziness that comes with it. But I do believe stuff like that needs to be experimented and regulated, and they need to do it, but they can't even get it to the point of it being experimented on and examined in real true depth, like you do at some of these major colleges and universities where they have departments that are just focused on experimenting and finding out about drugs and different things that grow naturally. But no, man. Whatever. They say whatever. But Trump said he's going to release. He may be signing. That's what's out right now. And when I'm talking to you, it's 12 noon right now on a Monday, and we haven't heard anything about it yet so far. But this is the last take as of yesterday, 24 hours ago. Okay. And we definitely want to see, because the stocks are blowing up, and I think they're going to continue to explode.
Trader Tim Seymour, he's behind, of course, the Amplify Seymour Cannabis ETF, which surged nearly 55% today. Its best day on record. Such a good day that Tim comes to us in a hoodie. Tim,
in a hoodie. We're talking cannabis. Why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we?
So the rescheduling, that has been something that investors are hoping for. It seems like you get a whiff of it, the stocks go up. You say this is for real this time. Why?
A whiff, no pun intended. So I think it is real. I think it's always been real. I think even at the end of the Biden administration, the idea of rescheduling was out there. Remember, this doesn't require a congressional follow-through, doesn't require legislation. This is an administrative order. Trump's been very clear all along. The question was, could we get this in front of Trump, and could it be something that has enough of a priority? It's very clear that the industry has engaged Washington in a way that I think is much more sensible, been much more focused. I think there's no question that top CEOs have been in Mar-a-Lago, have been in D.C., have been working with the president's team. I think there's no question that RFK Jr. and the HHS and even Dr. Oz have weighed in on this, and important people around the president have said Schedule 3 from Schedule 1 makes a ton of sense. And I don't think this is even that controversial, even in a world of bipartisan dynamics. In fact, I think the call Wednesday night that is spoken about in the Washington Post article that was out last night between President Trump and Speaker Johnson is one that just really kind of explained what can happen. And the question is on the timing. The implications for this are incredible for the industry. And I do think that this is the kind of a domino to fall that would get other things going that don't necessarily have to be legislative follow through either, including exchange listings, which I think is the holy grail here, because that really would bring in institutional capital. If you're investing in cannabis here, there's not institutional capital.
Right. And that's what I wanted to go to. We have the screen up, Tim, in terms of the domino effect, or the different tentacles, the different ways stocks will benefit. It's not just that the products themselves are no longer, regulated in the same way as a cocaine, for instance. It's all these other effects, including listings, including access to capital, et cetera.
So Schedule 3 effectively, legalizes the medical cannabis market. But it absolutely does mean, understand that as a Schedule 1 drug, cannabis is taxed in a way that basically gross profits are absolutely taxed. It makes it almost technically impossible for companies to be profitable.
So I keep saying this, and I will always say it, whether you're talking about immigration, whether you're talking about immigration and deportation, whether you're talking about Zoran Mandani, whether you're talking about Ilhan Omar, whether you're talking about, it doesn't matter. Follow the money. Follow the money. I do believe one reason why cannabis hasn't become legalized or even on a national level, or even taken from Schedule 1 down to Schedule 3, okay, is simply there's too much money on the opposite side that was holding against it. But recently, and I've seen it myself, there's been a boom. It's nearly $1 billion. Is a multi-billion-dollar industry. But if you noticed what happened when we recently had this government shutdown and the government opened back up again, I saw this seeing reports of when the Republicans and Democrats agreed to actually reopen it back, they signed that bill, okay? In that bill to reopen back up, there was also a portion that pulled hemp THC products off of the shelves within a year. And I was wondering how and why would they agree to that? But just like everything else, you couldn't separate it from the bill. It was so entwined in the bill. Now we're talking about an industry of THC and hemp. That's a multi-billion-dollar industry already. If you go to certain stores, you'll see THC drinks, you see hemp drinks. This is no longer a taboo type of situation where it seems like just a bunch of older folks kept this thing as taboo. And I would think it was older folks, but I don't know if it's just the older folks anymore because it was. But I believe, this is my personal opinion, when you surround tech people around Trump, like Elon Musk and some of these other tech guys who are more creative and more liberal in many different ways, they're on the Republican or the conservative side. Don't get it twisted, because they recognize the need to be there right now. Okay, which is smart, because Trump he wants to blow their business. He wants to expand their business. They're users. Most of these, I'm not going to say all of them, but we know Elon Musk is probably a smoker, but it does affect them, and it affects everyone. And it's stupid at its whole. To me, it's the equivalent of dealing with, back in the day where they had when you couldn't drink, and they would actually lock people up for making drinks, and moonshine came out. They were smuggling it. Prohibition. Yeah, that's the word, prohibition. They were smuggling for prohibition. But hey, prohibition stopped a lot of the growth, but people still started doing it, and they were smuggling behind them. So behind the government's back. So they had to stop it and bring it back. When David gets home from work and his wife is like, "You're not drinking no alcohol today," I'm glad that they took that devil's spirit out, Even though in the Bible, Jesus turned water into wine. It's weird. Somebody said, "That's not the same wine as it is today." How do you know? How do you know? If it was buzzing them, it was definitely something that was in there, okay? It was something. Come on now, let's be for real. But they're doing the same thing, and they've done the same thing with cannabis. It's just been sitting on the side for a while, simply because they got the alcohol going. But it's billions of dollars, billions and billions of dollars, billions of opportunity. I think hundreds of thousands of people that have been in prison over the years for this stupid behind drug. This stupid behind leaf. And the worst thing I saw, even being as a conservative, I saw Fox News going ham on it. "I think this is the worst thing he could ever do. I think it, I like listening to Fox, but sometimes y'all just need to just shut up. Y'all just need to. Because let's be for real. You're only taking the approach of these old media folks who don't want to lose power, who got something to say. They old school. And it's cool. There's nothing wrong with being old school. But let's be for real. Times are changing. Just like AI is busting out, this is going to bust out too. I've always been a proponent of educating over restricting. And we'll talk more about that. Let's finish this real quick.
In any way, vertically integrated companies can work within, accounting constructs to be more profitable. But this has huge implications right now for free cash flow. And this is something that the industry, at a time when a number of big companies have also actually pushed and rolled out some debt, have actually dealt with restructuring debt and have more to go. I think it's very important. It's potentially important for the 25 calendar year where there are taxes payable. If this gets done before the end of the tax year, it could actually be a boom even for 25 free cash flow. But more importantly, it really would be arguably the most important moment in Catalyst from a DC perspective. Again, this wouldn't be legislation. This would be administrative order. I think a lot would follow from here. We've heard headlines before. The sources I have in DC, the dynamics that I know have been going on for the industry now for months. Remember, we started getting real talk of Trump doing this in August. By the way, CNBS closed at the highs, but also at the high level of where prices went at the end of August. A lot of cannabis stocks did. We were on record volume. I think this does feel different.
It does feel different. A lot of things feel different right now with Trump. And
Cannabis stocks surged today amid growing reports.
I think it's kind of probably taking his conservative constituents, some of the ones that are hard-nosed, out of it, and they're upset. That's why you see Fox responding to this the way that they're responding to it and saying it's a bad idea and all that good stuff. It makes me look at the control of government, period. Just the control, the need to control people instead of turning around and pushing education. Control them and don't give them a chance to think freely. Let them conform to what we tell them is right and what's wrong. Because when you sit back and you do the studies, yeah, you get conflicting studies. Oh, cannabis makes you do this and do that. I heard somebody's depression and some other stuff. And then I've heard, no, it helps, heals your body. And it's great. And if you've had some experience with THC and you know for a fact, leave a comment. Because at the end of the day, there are still people who suffer from PTSD. I'm prior military. I know it's a lot of military cats out of there who go to, who have to get a card to get that prescription to help to be able to buy medical marijuana, because who wants to be stuck on pharmaceutical drugs dealing with PTSD or depression? You got people like Mike Tyson, who we know Mike is bananas. He's crazy. Mike's got his own cannabis line, accessories line. But he said something that was interesting when I was looking at one of his videos about this, because I had to do a deep dive, learn more, and just get more deeper. I'm like, wow, this is Mike said it. He said, man, my family likes me better because this helps him with his hurts, his pains, his injuries from years of boxing in the sport. And his family just likes him better. And Mike does seem like a more calm beast. No lie. Hulk Hogan was dealing with that same thing too. More of a calm beast. No lie. I think the stigma that cannabis is and marijuana is some type of drug that will kill you, and putting it on the level of crack cocaine, fentanyl, I think is insane. It's very insane. And the only people I see pushing hard on that, really hard on that, and I hate to say, is the religious Christian folks. Yeah. And you heard what I said, religious Christian folks, not the people that have a relationship with God. And it's the ones who want to control it because they believe they're saving our country through that level of control. Now, you can't regulate people. You can't do that. We've seen when you get into regulating people, over-regulation leads to it's just another form of condemnation, another form of guilt, another form of guilting people, another form of putting them into slavery. You overregulate it. Overregulating. There has to be a balance where the needs are there and you see it in the, and I'm not a fan to say the government being in everything, but I could see why the government would need to be in that, and the government would make money. People will be more happy. More money will flow. But you try to share it, but follow the green, because the green will tell you, not the green of the plant, but the dollar green will tell you who's for it and who's against it.
That President Trump intends to sign an executive order that would loosen federal restrictions on marijuana. Officially, the White House says no final decisions have been made, but the Trump administration has been considering a reclassification of cannabis for a while. NBC Bay Area's Emma Goss explains how reclassifying the drug could be a huge boost for California's cannabis industry.
California's cannabis industry is bracing for what could be a big break if President Trump takes action to reclassify marijuana to a less serious class of drug. Currently put in the same drug category as heroin and cocaine, the proposed order would classify cannabis as a Schedule III drug alongside drugs like Tylenol with codeine.
This is a good thing. It should have been done a long time ago. I'm happy to hear it. There's obviously a lot here that we disagree with President Trump on, but this is one where we have agreement. Cannabis should not be grouped with hard drugs like heroin and cocaine.
The category matters.
You know, it's crazy though. The libs, they got it. I mean, I tell you, your liberals, y'all, if you can't see that the guy, he's not anti-liberal. He doesn't just hate liberals, because this is more of a liberal thing than it is a conservative thing. And because it just is, from Nixon going on to Reagan, you know, say no to drugs, and it's in that place. It's always been a conservative, not a sweet spot, but a pain for conservatives. But it's been a sweet spot for Dems, for liberals. I believe he is doing this strategically. I think it benefits him politically. I think it benefits us economically. And I think it will actually make some changes. Now, you're like, Leon, I thought you said you're a Christian. How do you do that? Because I actually have a relationship with God. I'm not sitting down and and rocking a title. I'm really not. Is it like, at the end of the day, if you think that cannabis is going to send you to hell, you got more problems than you really realize you do, you know?
A lot for the sustainability of California's legal cannabis industry, which is struggling on several fronts at the moment. Assemblymember Matt Haney says current rules mean the industry can't operate like others do.
You can't operate like a regular small business. You can't deduct your rent and utilities and business costs in the same way that any other small business is allowed to. And you're charged more by banks and credit cards. Often these type of costs that the federal government puts on small businesses, because they're treating cannabis like hard drugs, lead to these businesses being unsustainable, unable to operate, shutting down, unable to compete with the illegal illicit market.
Reclassifying cannabis could potentially come with some caveats.
Just with the illegal illicit market in itself is enough, because there's so much stuff, like I mentioned earlier, that's in illegal illicit cannabis. You never know if somebody puts some fentanyl in it. You don't know what else could be added in there. LSD, any of that crap can be added in there because you get it off of Pookie on the corner, okay? And Mo on the corner, he got it off of Juarez from the cartel. And who knows? Who knows? And people don't intentionally go out to kill their buyers, but things happen, and you leave yourself open to more of that taking place, so much more. I think it would cripple the cartel hold on marijuana on the black market. I think it would blow up and expand the U.S. Market, and it would make so much money for local municipalities, so much for local areas. Now, people say it's not all about the money. Well, yeah, it's not all about the money, and it's not just the money. It is actually the health and safety of people also who go around, who don't listen and don't care what the government has to say, whether it be in Schedule 1, legal or illegal, and they will still go use it because they need it or they want it for whatever reason. They are the ones that are most susceptible to being hurt. And why do we care about them? Because that's a big thing to care about. They're American citizens. They're people that live here. I mean, there are our fellow man, like, for something like that. And I find that most people who feel that way, they've never done any type of real studying about cannabis and marijuana and any of the positive and negative effects. Just like anything else, like alcohol, anything you use in abundance and excessiveness, if it's like excessive, you're going to have things that happen. You're going to. Your body can't take it. It wasn't designed for it. You know? If I ate too much oregano every day and I just got up here and I'm putting oregano, I'm just going to eat oregano. Come on, man. It's oregano. You're like, it's not going to do too much. How do you know? How do you know? How do you know? It's a point in time your body says, hey, just stop. So we need to have that regulated for that reason.
Namely, that as a Category 3 drug, the federal government would have more control over how it's distributed and accessed, for better or worse, says Adam Smith, executive director of the Marijuana Policy Project.
It's a step in the right direction, but it's still unclear to those of us who advocate for an end to federal prohibition and a normalization of the commercial atmosphere around cannabis. The question is really going to be what comes next.
After the executive order is signed, the Drug Enforcement Administration would then finalize a proposed rule for reclassification later next year. Emma Gauze, NBC Bay Area News.
Ooh, boy. So that's definitely going to change the way that things are done. Will it happen? Well, right now we're still waiting to see what takes place. I believe it will. I believe that Trump knows exactly what he's doing. That dude's got him.